Hello, delighted to be chatting with you, Matt. Yourself and Steve Evans here.
Hi, Matt. Pleased to make your acquaintance finally. Terry's told me a lot about you. You okay?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And I believe you are in, is it that right, Santa Barbara?
Yeah, Santa Barbara, California, mid to southern area. I like to tell people it's between 2 and 8 hours from Los Angeles, depending on the traffic.
Okay, so what's it like there today?
Well, today it's actually a tiny bit gloomy. But generally, it's actually been really nice and clear the last few weeks. We're in the heart of winter right now. We're coming up on Christmas in a little bit. In
Right.
fact, maybe I'll put on my Santa hat in a little bit here. But it's been, between 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know how to convert that, but it's been pretty nice recently.
That's not too bad, is it? Like it's about 16, 17 degrees Celsius, I think, Terry, isn't it?
Yeah,
Something
about
like
right.
That's
that.
Yeah,
what you tell
Not
me.
bad.
yeah.
It's a lot warmer than it is here
Oh, yeah,
anyway.
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, it's funny because I recently moved across the country. I used to live in Asheville, North Carolina, and it gets very cold there. I mean, not necessarily cold compared to other places in the country, but it's just barely above freezing for many months of the year. And so this is a nice change.
Okay, nice one. So, tell us a bit more about your comment that's on your Twitter or your ex biography. Just a sarcastic rugby playing, beach laying, beer drinking writer who likes sushi too much. What's all that about then?
Well, I'm just such a dynamic character that I have to jam as much into that little profile as I can. I actually haven't even checked my ex in quite a long time, but I'm pretty sure I've copied and pasted that description of myself across many different
Yeah.
various mediums. You'll probably find it on my Instagram too. But yeah, I'm a little bit of a sarcastic asshole. I'm nice on the inside, but I put off this rough exterior. I played rugby for many years, but I'm also a nerd at heart. Grew up reading Lord of the Rings and Asimov and C.S. Lewis and tons of different sci-fi and fantasy books. So I definitely have that nerd inside me, and I have that bit of creativity as well that I need to get out once in a while.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, nice
Love
one.
it.
Yeah. So, Matt, you kind enough to send me a copy of your debut fantasy novel, Secrets of the Erilaz. How do you pronounce the Erilaz? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
Erilaz. So the
Erilaz.
word, gosh, I wish I would have a copy of the book next to me. There's some back on the shelf, but I don't want to get up and show my ass to everybody. But there's a definition in the front of the book that says that Erilaz, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't remember the exact definition, but it's a Proto-Norse word that means rune lord or rune master or something like that. So the word itself actually has a meaning outside of just my fantasy world. It's someone who is a master of runes, basically what that comes down to.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And this follows the story of Naryan, heir to the kingdom of Sartoria. He inherits the throne after his father's mysterious death. I've really enjoyed the read, more so with the main character, the would-be king. He's got loads of flaws. He's a drinker. He shirks responsibilities. Did you deliberately sort of add these sort of quirks and
Oh yeah,
these
absolutely.
vices to him?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The first part of the book is literally called The Sinner,
Yeah,
and it follows Narayan's portion. I'm not sure how far into the book you are yet. I don't want to ruin too much of it, but the
sure.
first part follows Narayan. The second part follows Einar, which is the first Erilaz that we encounter, and then the third part follows Sherry, who is a pseudo love interest to Narayan. Again, I don't want to get into ruining too much. They have a very tumultuous relationship. And, as you pointed out, Narayan is definitely an alcoholic. He's a womanizer. And, one thing I don't want to do is misconstrue this characterization that I have of Narayan as glorification of his vices. I think I wanted to build a character that is, he's messed up. A lot of us are messed up, and I drew some of his messed upness from my own life, of course, and some of it I didn't. I'll let you guess which parts, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to make a real character that has his own struggles that he has to work through, and each of the characters have their own struggles that you come across in the book as well.
I found it to be an excellent read. I'm about halfway through. Thoroughly enjoying it.
Awesome, glad to hear it.
So, Matt, is this a standalone book or is it part of a series, a trilogy, or what? Or what's your plans?
Yeah, so at this particular second, it's a standalone. I wrote it as a standalone, but then as I got to the end, I was like, there's so much more that I have to say. So there will probably be a sequel someday. I have not yet officially started it, but I am formulating plans in my mind. But it's ironic, I just mentioned it was a standalone. This is my first published novel, but many years ago, it took me maybe 2 or 3 years to write. I wrote a separate novel. And that one still needs a ton of work. I'm still working on it. But then I was like, you know what? I just need to push something out. So I'm going to write this kind of like shitty standalone novel that it is what it is. Whatever happens, it happens. And then, as any creative realizes, it becomes your baby and you love it so much. And so now, like, I really love this novel and I really hope it's not just a shitty standalone novel, but that's kind of how it originated. I was just like, let me just get something out there for everyone to read finally.
Narayan is little more than a grown child and unfit for kingly duties.
Unfit or not, he is the next in line.
There is chaos in the streets, my lord. The people do not know what to make of this magician.
It was but a trick of the eye. There is no such thing as magic.
It does not matter. War is declared on you.
Einar is a powerful tool to be used.
Now that I see magic, it must be forbidden, for it reeks of evil intent.
It's time he went the way of his father.
In the novel, the mage, it reintroduces forgotten magic into a secular kingdom. Is this the type of, you mentioned before, what's the type of fiction that you enjoy reading? Is this what you like? Novel about magic or fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up reading Lord of the Rings. I've probably read the entire trilogy 10 plus times in my youth.
Oh,
definitely got my love of fantasy from Tolkien. But I will say, I'm not trying to emulate Tolkien because Tolkien was the best at what he did. And if I try and copy him, I'm just going to be a shitty knockoff. So I'm not trying to copy.
People say he created a language, didn't he? And he wrote a novel to plonk onto that language. Yeah.
I'm not trying to create a world as in-depth as Tolkien. Like, if you want to read a story about a world, then go read Tolkien. If you want to read a story about rough around the edges characters, read mine. So there's a difference there. And I think there's arguments to be made that Tolkien had great characterization as well. But I think his story is more about Middle-earth in general, what Middle-earth was going through. And my world that I've built, there are some things that I give you, but it's mostly just enough to get by. Like, that there's the kingdom of Satoria, and they're in a war with the kingdom of Cromer, and there's a little bit of politics, but the story is not about them. It's about the characters inside.
Okay.
As well as the novel, you're a podcaster, an actor, and a writer-director, I believe. So, yeah. Which is, of these various titles, which is the most comfortable one you think you fit into? Actor or author or...
Well, I mean, look at me. I'm such a dynamic character. I want to get back on the screen someday. I haven't done any acting since college, so I'm a little bit out of practice in that, one might say. But since I finished college, I've been doing a lot more writing. And then, as you noted, I wrote and directed a short film called The Cardinal Sinner. No relation really to The Secrets of the Erilaz, but did you guys have a chance to watch that film?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah, on YouTube.
Awesome. I really... As noted before, I'm just an expressive person. I have a lot of messages that I feel that I need to get across through different mediums. And the medium that I'm choosing right now has been authorhood, and then kind of trying to move into the film a little bit.
Tell us a little bit about, for the benefit of anybody who watches this back, tell us a bit about the short film, The Cardinal Sinner.
Yeah, so it's also a medieval fantasy, but I would say it's a little bit less on the fantasy part and more like on the grim, dark, almost horror, maybe like a psychological horror. But it's about again, without trying to give away too much for those who haven't seen it, it's about a Templar who forsakes his brothers in battle. He runs away from them, and then he comes across a monk who saves him from an injury, and the monk gives him a sword that turns out to be, let's just say it's like it's demon possessed, and it starts to call him out for all of his sins, and then he ends up having to battle with his interior, with his insides of what he's done in the past, the bad things that he's done, and come to terms with if he is a good or a bad person. Is ultimately like what I was trying to do when I wrote that film.
Cool.
But it's actually, it's funny because I partnered with Joshua Lively from Studio Blue Jay on that project. And the way it started is he messaged me because we had done a very small project before, just like a 48-hour film festival. And he's like, "Hey, we work well together. I bought this random sword off Amazon. Do you want to write a script for it?" So I literally just wrote a script based on this sword that he bought off Amazon, and he showed me the hilt, and I thought it was cool, and it was like this demonic looking sword. So the different way that you can be inspired by to write a story just comes from so many different ways.
Matt, I'm watching the film and also for the teaser that you made for the novel, which is brilliant. I think I can't imagine that making any kind of short film becomes cheap. How do you go about raising finance for these projects?
Well, so the short film, The Cardinal Sinner, that one was done very cheaply. So
Oh.
I was volunteer, and the cinematographer Josh was volunteer. We just wanted to do it because we love it. The actors were all volunteer. The entire budget for the entire show was about $1,000, so not very expensive. I mean, we spent most of it on just the props and stuff, and then buying lunch for everybody for a few days. We did the entire shoot in 2 days over 2 weekends. So sorry, 4 days total, 2 days on 2 weekends, and it was a blast. So Josh, he had some family that had a ranch over in Tennessee. It was like 80 acres of just cow pastures and
Wow.
and forests and stuff. So we just hiked out there and shot over a couple weekends. It started raining on us and storming. His car got stuck in like 3 feet of mud, and it was just a blast overall to shoot. But financing for that was very minimal. It was just like $1,000 for the whole thing. And then the other one, you might be referring to my book trailer.
Yeah,
that was
brilliant.
actually completely done with AI. So
Oh.
I had to
Surprised me.
buy a subscription to Google Flow VO3 at the time. It's maybe a little bit outdated now. Less than a year later, it's already outdated. It's crazy how fast AI moves. But yeah, I had a subscription to that, and then I fed it a ton of prompts, and then I edited and organized the entire thing myself.
How long did that take you to make? I've had a bash at this myself, and it don't look anything as good as the production values that you've got on that trailer.
Well, perhaps I have the film vision and the experience doing that. So how long did it take? I didn't track it. I did it maybe over the course of a couple months, maybe 3 months, a little bit here and there. All in all, maybe I would just guess 20 hours. I really don't know. When you say it took 20 hours, that's a lot considering it was only 2 minutes long, though.
Yeah, it's true.
It's time he went the way of his father.
Why are you following me?
I have nowhere else to go.
You must learn to control your spirit, for you cannot live as you do and live as I do.
Sticking with film, talking about film then, have you any plans to introduce your book as a feature-length film? Is that something you would be looking at, or you'd like someone to maybe take on? Is it?
I would
anything
love to do that. Now, I think the budget for it would be a little bit more than $1,000. So I would have to connect with the studio, and I'd have to turn it into a screenplay, which I'm already considering doing. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is I don't have any plans yet. But if you guys know any studios that are interested, I can arrange something.
Nice one.
Matt, did you get involved with film festivals? I know we've spoken to a couple of writers and actors who say that basically that's the only way they can get to fund their short films, by entering it into competitions, to festival competitions, and hopefully win prizes.
Yeah, so we actually did submit the Cardinal Center to a few film fests. I don't recall all of them, but we did get accepted into one of them. It was the Highlands Horror Fest out of Tennessee, and we actually got it shown in the theater. You know, there were a few hundred people there watching. It was really great to be in the theater and feel the energy of the audience while they were watching my film. Because I love watching and reading the stuff that I do. You know, maybe that's my ego. I always create the kinds of things that I like to watch and the things that I like to read. So I kind of just tickle myself every time I do it. But I don't really know if everybody else loves it. And so being in the audience with everyone who didn't necessarily know that I was the writer director for it, and just seeing their reactions and then hearing the applause at the end and hearing them talk about it afterwards, that was really gratifying from a creator perspective.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So what's your big ambitions then? What are your ambitions as a writer and a creator then? Is it awards? You're into looking at awards, or you're into just getting on a big screen, or is it something more than that? Or you just want to make a reader happy with a book?
I mean, it's all of the above. And I think the way that you will get to the big awards and the big payout is by making people happy, right? If no one likes your books, they're not going to read it. They're not going to want to watch a movie about it. So keeping the quote unquote customer happy is ultimately what the highest goal is. Now, I also have my own creative goals. And I remember I was probably at the end of high school, so 16, 17 years old. And I got this itch inside me. I said, I want to write a novel and I want to publish that novel. And then I want to write a screenplay. And then I want to get that turned into a movie and I want to act in that movie. So if you ask what my long-term goal is, that is what it is. Now, it's not necessarily this book. It might be a different book. It might be a different project. That's completely okay. But that's what my ultimate goal is. And, you know, I've thought about it a lot because this is, you know, it takes you a couple years to write a book. This isn't just something you just sit down and bust out in an afternoon. Like my first aforementioned novel took me 2 to 3 years. The sequel for that, you know, I've worked on for 6 months. Secrets of the Erilaz took me about 2 years. So I've been following projects for quite a long time and seeing them through. And ultimately, what I would love to see is me being able to support myself through my creativity so I can continue my creativity, because I have a day job. You know, most creatives, unless you're incredibly successful, you have a day job. And I can't just quit my day job because I got a wife and a kid that are going to get pissed at me if they don't have a roof and any food. So I got to keep doing that. And all this is just kind of a side project for now. But I would love to see in the future the ability to support myself and my family through that, because ultimately what I love doing is being creative. And I often ask myself, I'm like, if I had, you know, millions of dollars and I didn't have to work, what would my day look like? And, you know, it looks something like getting up and exercising and then, you know, maybe playing piano and writing for a few hours and then all that stuff. But then I realized, like, all the stuff I want to do is creative. So I might as well be as creative as I can now, because that's really what I love doing, is being creative, writing these books and making these movies. And it is gratifying in and of itself. When I held my book for the first time, for example, I ordered my author proof copy off of Amazon, and I held it for the first time, and I literally looked at it, and I was like, this is the culmination of all of my creativity in 2 years of hard work, of getting up at 6 a.m. to write before work, of staying up late to write before work, of telling my wife, no, sorry, I don't want to hang out with you right now. I'm in the middle of a chapter. Like, all of these hard things that I did that nobody saw except for me, it was physically manifested in this hard copy. And, you know, you guys unfortunately don't have the hard copy. I can arrange for that if you want. You guys got the digital copy, but it's still, it makes me happy to see other people reading my work and enjoying it. And, you know, it's not perfect. I find typos here and there. Don't judge me, but I would love to improve in the future. So if you guys have any feedback, you know, you said you're reading it, I would love to just get an email from you when you're done and say, hey, this is what I love. This is what you can work on better next time.
Okay. Yeah, it's a deal. Do you have an agent at the moment, Matt, or are you actively seeking an agent?
So I went back and forth on being self-published versus finding an agent and going with traditional publishing. So the short answer is no, I do not currently have an agent.
Okay.
I'd be opening to finding one. I had a rather poor experience with my first novel with searching for agents, which is I sent out, I don't know the exact number, somewhere, let's just call it between 30 and 50 queries for my novel. Yeah. And I did not get so much as a, hey, we don't like this, best of luck, or hey, this is what you can improve, best of luck. Just zero responses. And so that left a really poor taste in my mouth with agents kind of being the gatekeepers to the publishing industry. Now, I understand totally, especially with people using AI to write now. Full transparency, I use zero AI in any of my writing. Everything comes from me creatively. And so there does need to be some sort of gatekeeper so that the industry and Amazon is just not flooded with tripe. I understand that, but we do need better communication because we're not gonna get better if we don't understand how we failed the first time around. So again, with my first novel that I was looking for, I totally, looking back now, because I wrote it when I was 24, so like a decade ago, right? I understand why they didn't want to publish it. But if they would have told me why in just 5 sentences, I could have progressed. And because I got none of that feedback, it's been sitting now for a decade waiting for me to kind of work on it. And I pushed out this other quote unquote side project, Secrets of the Erilaz and all that stuff. So the short answer again is, if you know of any agents, hit me up. Happy to talk with them. But I decided to go with self-publishing for that reason.
Okay. Yeah. So what's your writing routine then, Matt? Do you have post-it notes all over your house, or do you have a little black book with you and you put notes in, or you have it on your laptop all the time? What's your method, or how do you prefer to
yeah, so there's I do use sticky notes, but not all over the house. I use a sticky note app on my desktop. So whenever I have an idea, I just type it in there and then I organize them, and then I put them all in Google spreadsheets and then I organize them. I'm a little bit like OCD in this way of keeping things organized. I actually used Base 44, which is like an AI development app to create other apps. And I created an app to help me organize my ideas. And so I put them in there and it organizes it by the project and then the character. And then if this is a plot idea or a character idea, or if it's a world idea or whatever it is, I just have tons of ideas that are all super organized in spreadsheets and apps like this. And, I think it's a little bit of procrastination. I should just sit down and write it instead of saving it for later. But I do need to be incredibly organized. And then for my process, people will talk about, are you a plotter or a pantser? I am somewhere in the middle. So what I do is I write a very basic plot, and then I say, okay, I want to hit these 5 points throughout the entire story, and everything else just kind of fills in the middle. So I'm not full plotter, full pantser. I know some people will write a very detailed plot with like 70 points and try and do all those. I can't do that because I feel like the characters and the plot need to develop a little bit more naturally. Like a lot of the behaviors that Narayan exhibits, I kind of just wrote those in the moment. If you're more than halfway through the book, of the scene with Sherry that I'm talking about in the carriage. I didn't plan for that. That kind of just happened. I was like, what happens when someone gets drunk and they're in a situation like this? What kind of poor decisions do they make? And that literally changed the entire course of the book, because Sherry was going to be his best friend and confidant and was going to learn magic with him. And she couldn't anymore after he made that decision. And so that set her on her own path. And so I encourage writers to not be boxing yourself in by creating such plots that you need to strictly follow, but kind of see what happens naturally.
Matt, so tell us about your own YouTube channel where you do what we're doing here. You chat with writers.
Yeah, so the Writers Are People Too podcast, hosted by yours truly. It's funny when I tell people about it. It started out as a fairly selfish endeavor. I was like, I want to create an audience for me so that when I publish my book, people will know who I am and they'll like me and they'll go and buy my book.
Right.
So I started Secrets of the Erilaz around maybe a little bit. I think I started writing Secrets of the Erilaz before I started the podcast, but that's why I started the podcast. And I ended up interviewing over 100 authors over 2 years. And like I said, it started out selfishly, but then I realized like these authors have so many good things to say and they have no way to market themselves effectively, which is something that I'm experiencing now, trying to market your book and get it out there. Yeah. So I was like, I really love helping people and I love hearing about the stories and I love making the connections. And so I did it for 2 years, but then I realized I was spending too much time on that instead of what I actually wanted to do, which was writing. So I may revisit the podcast someday. It's not completely dead. I'm just not focusing on it right now. I want to continue to focus on my writing. But again, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I did this for 2 years. I know how difficult it is to have someone come on and perhaps not be the most dynamic character.
Well,
Hopefully,
but
I am a dynamic character.
We're enjoying your company, Matt. We've had people on who've
Oh,
just said yes, no, yes, no.
oh yeah.
It's hard.
You had some bad
It's so
ones.
hard to have a conversation with someone who doesn't give you anything back. Now, again,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not perfect. Maybe I'm talking about myself too much. Maybe
No,
you should
it's perfect.
tell me about
It's
yourself.
so good.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to sit across from someone and talk to them about their baby.
Yeah.
And especially if you have things that are not always positive to say, if you have critiques about it, it's difficult to tell someone like, hey, this was not a great sentence that you wrote, or not a great plot point, or it didn't really make sense. I couldn't follow it. And so there are so many challenges, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to at least read part of my book. I totally get if you guys are doing a podcast every week, you don't have time to read 52 books a year at something like that. So I totally understand all the challenges that come along with this, but I digress. It was a great time. I did it for 2 years. I'll probably revisit it someday. I met a lot of great people, had a lot of great connections from it.
Okay.
Superb. Yeah, we've had a lot of great connections from doing this over the last. How many years is it now, Terry?
3 years, if
More than that.
Wow.
4 years.
More than
Do you
that,
know what?
you
I'd
know?
lose track of time, Steve, since COVID.
I moved into this place where I am now 3.5 years ago, and we were doing it a good year before that, So
Wow.
4.5 years, I think, and we've interviewed so many, not just authors, but mainly authors, I think.
Yeah.
And so you get a different story off everyone as well, and so many perspectives. It is really good and really interesting, and we meet so many good characters as well. Yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
Final one from me then. What advice would you give to a new would-be writer then, who's wants to write a book for the first time?
Well, the first thing I have tons of advice, and some of it is personal advice, and some of it is advice that I've learned from doing the 2 years of author interviews as well. The first one is if you want to write a book, you need to take it seriously. You can't just scratch out a few words here and there every few weeks and expect to ever finish a book. You need to sit down with your ass in the chair every single day for a year. And at that point, maybe you can reassess, is this something I want to do? But you need to take it seriously. Like if you have a day job, you can't just call your boss and be like, I don't feel like coming in today. No, you're going to get fired. You're not going to be able to finish a book if you don't take it seriously. If you don't take yourself seriously. And that's kind of where the advice I just gave to do it for a year comes in. Like make a promise to yourself that you're going to do it for a year. And it is okay to give up on a project. It's okay to stop that, but don't just do it on a whim. Make a well-defined decision. Why are you going to give up on a project? Don't just give up because you didn't want to do it because you wanted to watch TV, watch Netflix, eat junk food instead. Like you need to take yourself seriously and you need to sit down and do it. And don't give up and don't listen to what other negative things people are saying. And take all the feedback with a grain of salt. Because some people don't know the type of book that you're trying to write. And if you know very clearly what you're trying to write and someone gives you off the wall feedback that's like, this sucks for these reasons, look at the reasons, don't just throw it out, but then understand why you're writing your project for your own reasons. And then look at the things they say that sucked and maybe make those changes. It just depends.
Okay. Comments? Yeah.
Excellent advice. But Matt, as I mentioned, it looks like time's caught up with us, but it's been an absolute blast. I've really enjoyed spending time with you. Really appreciate your company.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I appreciate you having me on and getting to chat with you. And I love hearing myself talk, as you can tell. So hopefully other people listen to it too.
All right. But for now, you take care. Cheers, Matt.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Guys. Bye.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.